The Grand Convergence fleet shimmered in the void like a jeweled necklace flung across the stars. Hundreds of ships from dozens of alien species hung in perfect formation near the edge of the nebula. Their hulls gleamed with alien alloys, their engines hummed with harmonics far beyond human hearing, and their shields pulsed with colors no Earth-born eye had ever seen. This was the greatest alliance the galaxy had ever known, united against the rising terror of the Dominion. And then there was the UNS Perseverance. It drifted at the very back of the formation, far from the proud vanguard where the real warriors stood. To the other species, it looked like a mistake. Its hull was dull gray, with patches of welds and old micrometeorite dents. It had no glowing fins, no sweeping curves, no elegant weapon ports. It looked like something that belonged in a museum or a junkyard. "Look at it," sneered Admiral of the Hegemony, his voice crackling over the private comms channel shared by senior commanders. "That thing calls itself a warship. It moves slower than my grandmother's hoverchair." A ripple of laughter followed. From the crystalline command spire of the vessel Luminous Resolve, High Speaker chimed in, her voice like wind through glass. "I scanned it yesterday. No quantum shielding, no neural targeting, barely any FTL capacity. How did they even get here without getting lost in subspace?" Captain Vance sat in the dimly lit bridge of the Perseverance, listening to the alien chatter through an open diplomatic feed. She didn't react. Her dark eyes stayed fixed on the main display, where sensor data scrolled in steady green lines. Around her, the human crew worked in quiet focus. No shouting, no panic, just calm efficiency. "They're still talking about us," said Lieutenant from the comm station, a wry smile on her face. "Just bet 3 crates of lumberries that we'll flee at the first sign of ships." "Let him keep betting," Vance replied. Her voice was low and steady. "We didn't come here to impress anyone." She stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, the alien fleet sparkled with arrogance. The ships glowed with violet energy, their hulls shaped like predatory birds. The vessels pulsed with organic veins, alive and breathing. Even the smallest scout ships looked faster, smarter, and deadlier than the Perseverance. But Vance knew something they didn't. The Perseverance wasn't built for show. It wasn't designed to win beauty contests or race through hyperspace lanes. It was built for endurance, for patience, for the kind of war that didn't end in a single battle, but in silence over years in the dark between stars. "Chief," she called over her shoulder, "how's the dampener holding up?" Chief Engineer wiped grease from his forehead and grunted. "Stable. We're running at 12% output. They think we're barely powered up. Good. Let them think we're weak." Vance nodded. That was the plan. Appear harmless, stay quiet, watch, learn. Back on the comms channel, the mockery continued. "I heard the humans used to fight each other with sticks and fire," joked a lieutenant, his voice bubbling like oil. "Maybe they brought those." "Worse," replied another. "I saw their cargo manifest. They brought coffee, as if caffeine could stop a dreadnought." More laughter. Vance almost smiled. They had no idea. To them, humanity was a new species, barely spacefaring for 2 centuries. They had arrived at the galactic stage wide-eyed and humble, asking questions, studying tech, trading minerals. They hadn't joined wars. They hadn't claimed territory. They just existed, quietly. And that made the older races uneasy, not because humans were dangerous, but because they were unpredictable. Now assigned to the rear guard for their own safety, the Alliance claimed, the Perseverance floated like an afterthought. Officially, it was there to monitor long-range sensors and relay data. Unofficially, it was there so it wouldn't get in the way. But as the hours passed, something odd happened. A young tactician named noticed it first. His biosensors kept picking up strange ripples near the human ship, not energy spikes, not weapons charging, but tiny gravitational tugs like the ship was breathing. He reported it. "Probably just their engines misfiring," his commander said, waving a clawed hand. "Ignore it, focus on the border." Didn't feel right about it, but he obeyed. On the Perseverance, the crew worked through their routine. Coffee brewed in the galley. Systems ran self-diagnostics. A soft jazz playlist played in the engineering bay's choice. Everything seemed normal, boring even. But deep in the ship's core, hidden behind layers of lead-shielded bulkheads, something far more advanced hummed to life. Not a weapon. Not yet. Just a sensor array, so sensitive it could detect a heartbeat 3 light seconds away. It had been listening since they arrived. Captain Vance returned to her chair. "Patch me into the main fleet channel." Raised an eyebrow. "You sure? They'll just laugh again." "I don't care. Protocol says we check in every 4 hours. She opened the channel. Her voice, calm, clear, and utterly human, cut through the chatter of alien dialects. UNS Perseverance to Grand Convergence Command. All systems nominal. No anomalies detected in our sector. For a moment, silence. Then Admiral's voice boomed, dripping with condescension. "Ah, the tin can speaks. Tell me, Captain Vance, did your systems detect any threats, or just your own shadow?" A few snickers followed. Vance didn't rise to the bait. "Just doing my duty, Admiral, standing by." She closed the channel. Shook her head. "One day they'll learn." "Maybe," Vance said, "but not today." Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. The nebula swirled in eerie silence, hiding secrets even the Alliance didn't understand, and somewhere far beyond they were coming. The Perseverance waited. It didn't shine, it didn't roar, it didn't beg for respect. It simply existed, solid, silent, and ready. The aliens kept laughing. They called it sluggish. They called it perilous only because it looked like it might fall apart. But deep in its steel bones, the ship held a truth they couldn't see. Humans didn't build ships to win applause. They built them to survive. And if survival meant letting the galaxy mock you for a little while, so be it. Captain Vance leaned back, sipped her coffee, and watched the stars. They would see soon enough. But not yet. The nebula had been calm for weeks, too calm. The Grand Convergence fleet floated in its outer rim like hunters waiting for prey that never came. Days turned into nights, and nights into shifts of dull routine. The alien crews grew restless. Some began to whisper that the threat was a bluff. Others joked that the Dominion was scared of the Alliance's shiny ships. Then, without warning, the sky broke open. It started as a flicker on long-range sensors, just a ripple in subspace. Then another, and another. Within minutes, the void ahead of the fleet tore itself apart as dozens of massive shapes surged into real space. They were not sleek or graceful. They were brutal, jagged, covered in thick black bioarmor that pulsed like living flesh. Spines jutted from their hulls. Green lightning crackled along their flanks. The Dominion had arrived. Alarms blared across the entire fleet. Ships scrambled to battle stations. Energy shields flared to life in bursts of color, violet, gold, cobalt. The dreadnoughts moved forward in perfect formation, their commanders shouting orders with confidence. The vessels formed a crystalline lattice of defense. The ships unleashed swarms of living drones. Only the UNS Perseverance did not move. It stayed exactly where it was, drifting slowly at the back, lights dim, engines humming at a whisper. To the other species, it looked like the humans had frozen in fear. "Typical," muttered Admiral over the emergency channel. "The moment real war begins, the mammals hide." Captain Vance ignored the insult. Her eyes were locked on her tactical screen. Unlike the others, she wasn't watching the ship's movements. She was watching their patterns, the way they jumped, the timing between bursts, the frequency of their biopulses. She'd seen this before, not in person but in old Earth War archives. This wasn't just an attack, it was a trap. They didn't charge, they danced. Their lead dreadnought fired a silent pulse, not a weapon but a gravity wave laced with neural static. It passed through shields like they weren't there. Across the fleet, alien crews cried out in pain as their minds were flooded with disorienting noise. The whose command relied on harmonic thought went dark for 3 full seconds. A cruiser veered off course, its organic systems confused. Then the real strike came. From hidden rifts in space, smaller hunters emerged, fast, silent, and deadly. They didn't fire lasers or plasma. They fired hooks, magnetic spears that latched onto enemy hulls and injected corrosive spores. One frigate lost its starboard engine in under 10 seconds. Another ship, a scout, shattered from within as its crystal circuits grew black mold. Panic spread. "Fall back, form defensive ring," roared, but his voice wavered. His own flagship took a direct hit from a biolance, a weapon that didn't pierce armor but melted it from the inside out. The alliance, so proud just hours ago, was crumbling. Through it all, the Perseverance remained still. Inside the ship, the crew worked with quiet urgency. No one shouted. No one panicked. Lieutenant rerouted power to passive sensors. Chief monitored hull integrity, his fingers flying over the controls. The jazz music in engineering had been turned off. Now, only the soft hum of machines filled the air. "Captain," said, her voice tight, "they're targeting the command hub. If they take out ship, the fleet loses coordination." Vance nodded. "They know that. That's why they're pulling everyone into a tight cluster. It makes us easier to hit." She turned to her tactical officer, a young man named. "What's the command frequency?" "Still decoding, but I think it's tied to that low-frequency pulse they keep repeating, like a heartbeat." "Good, keep listening." On the main screen, the battle grew worse. A destroyer exploded in a cloud of green smoke. 2 ships collided after their navigation systems failed. They weren't winning through firepower, they were winning by confusing their enemies. Their weapons didn't just destroy ships, they broke minds. And the Perseverance still did nothing. From the bridge of the flagship, spotted the human ship on his rear sensors. "Why is that rust bucket just sitting there? Are they dead?" One of his officers shrugged. "Maybe their systems failed, or they ran out of coffee." Snarled, "Useless." But not everyone agreed. Far below, on a support vessel, the young tactician watched his screen with growing unease. The human ship hadn't fired, hadn't moved, hadn't even raised its shields, but its position, it was too perfect. It sat just outside the main chaos, as if it had known exactly where the calm would be. And then he saw it. A tiny distortion in local gravity right where the Perseverance floated. Not an engine flare, not a weapon charge, just stillness. Too still. "Something's wrong," muttered. But no one listened. Back on the Perseverance, Vance finally stood. Lock onto the command dreadnought. Not to fire, just to watch. "Aye, Captain." The screen zoomed in on the largest ship, a monstrous thing, half machine, half beast, with a glowing red core at its heart. Vance studied it like a hunter studying prey. "They think we're slow because we don't jump like them," she said quietly. "They think we're weak because we don't scream when we fight, but Earth taught us something they forgot." "What's that?" asked. "That the loudest fighter isn't the deadliest. The deadliest one is the one you never see coming." Just then, a new alert flashed on the board. 3 hunters had broken through the front lines. They weren't chasing damaged ships. They were heading straight for the command cluster, and the Perseverance was directly in their path. The alien fleet saw it too. "They're going to crush the human ship like a tin can," someone said over open comms. But Vance didn't order evasive maneuvers. She didn't raise shields. She didn't even blink. "Chief," she said calmly, "activate Phase 1. His hands flew across his panel. Deep inside the ship, hidden systems stirred. The outer hull plates shifted slightly, aligning into a new configuration. The ship's surface grew darker, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Its engine signature dropped to near zero. To the sensors, the Perseverance didn't vanish, but it became unclear, like a shadow in fog. The 3 hunters slowed. Their bioradar pulsed, confused. They circled the human ship once, twice. Then, as if deciding it wasn't a threat, they veered away, heading straight for flagship. The alien commanders gasped. "Why didn't they attack the humans?" an officer asked. No one had an answer. On the bridge of the Perseverance, Vance allowed herself a small smile. They see us as prey, but prey doesn't choose when the hunt begins. She turned to her crew. "We've learned enough, prep for Phase 2. Nodded, her fingers already entering commands. "They still think we're just drifting." "Let them," Vance said. "We're not here to win a battle, we're here to end a war." Outside, they pressed their advantage. More ships fell. The Alliance's lines bent like a bow about to snap. Desperate calls filled the comms, pleas for help, orders that made no sense, cries of pain. But none were sent to the Perseverance. No one asked the humans for aid. They were still seen as irrelevant. A joke. A slow, broken ship floating in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that was exactly what Captain Vance wanted. Because while the galaxy watched the fire in the front, no one saw the spark growing in the back. The Perseverance waited. It had let them laugh. It had let them doubt. It had let them bleed. Now it was almost time. But not yet. Not yet. The battle raged like a storm that refused to end. Ships burned. Hulls cracked open like eggs. The nebula glowed red with the light of dying engines and exploding reactors. The Grand Convergence fleet, once proud and perfect, was now a broken line of wounded vessels, clinging to order that no longer existed. And through it all, the UNS Perseverance floated like a stone in a river, still, silent, alone. No one fired at it. No one tried to help it. It was just another piece of space junk, too slow, too dull, too harmless to waste a weapon on. To the Alliance, it was a ghost they'd already forgotten. But inside the ship, every second counted. Captain Vance stood at the center of the bridge, eyes fixed on the main display. The screen showed more than just enemy positions. It showed patterns, rhythms, weaknesses. They didn't fight like other species. They didn't rely on raw power or speed. They fought like a swarm, connected, thinking as one, guided by a single mind inside their command dreadnought. And that mind had a heartbeat. A low, steady pulse, sent every 4.7 seconds, linked every ship in the fleet. It wasn't just communication. It was control, like a conductor leading an orchestra of death. Vance had known this from the start. That's why the Perseverance never raised its shields. That's why it never fired a shot. Human shields would have blocked the very signals they needed to study, and firing would have drawn attention before they were ready. "Got it," said suddenly, his voice sharp with excitement. "The pulse, it's not just a signal, it's a neural tether. Break that and the fleet goes blind." Vance nodded. "How long until we can hit it?" "Not yet," called from engineering over the intercom. "The temporal anchors aren't charged. We need 5 more minutes of quiet." "Then we stay quiet," Vance said. She turned to, "Any messages from the Alliance?" "None," replied. "They're too busy trying not to die." A bitter laugh came from the back of the bridge. "Guess they finally stopped laughing at us." "We never needed them to stop," Vance said. "We just needed them to keep fighting long enough for us to learn." Outside, a cruiser spun out of control, its engines dead. 2 hunters latched onto its hull, their spines drilling into the metal like worms. The ship didn't explode. It just stopped, like it had fallen asleep. That's when the young tactician finally understood. He'd been watching the human ship for the past hour. While others panicked, he noticed something strange. The Perseverance hadn't moved more than a few meters in any direction. Yet, every time a hunter passed near it, the creature hesitated, just for a second, as if confused. And now, as the battle reached its worst, the human ship was the only one not taking damage. Opened a private channel to his commander. "Sir, I think the humans aren't hiding. I think they're hunting." His commander snorted. "Hunting, with that old barge, don't be foolish." but didn't close the channel. He kept watching. Back on the Perseverance, the crew worked in calm silence. Coffee cups sat half full on consoles. A small plant, real, green, and growing, sat on Vance's desk, a reminder of Earth. The air smelled faintly of metal and ozone, but also of something warmer, something human. Chief's voice crackled over the comms again. Dampeners at full sync. We're bending space around us like a pocket, to though we look like empty space. Good, Vance said. Keep it that way. She walked slowly across the bridge, checking every station. Not because she didn't trust her crew, but because she wanted them to see her calm. In war, fear spreads faster than fire, but so does courage. Remember why we're here, she said softly. Not for glory, not for revenge, for every ship that's burning out there because they didn't understand the enemy. We do, and that makes us dangerous. Turned in his chair. Captain, what if we're wrong? What if they change their pattern? Then we adapt, she said. That's what humans do. We lose, we learn, we come back smarter. She looked at the screen again. The command dreadnought hovered at the heart of the battle, untouched, confident. It had no reason to fear. The alliance was falling apart. Victory was certain. But it didn't see the trap. Because the trap wasn't made of weapons or shields. It was made of patience. For the past 2 days, the Perseverance had been sending out tiny, invisible pulses, so weak they were lost in cosmic background noise. These pulses weren't meant to be heard. They were meant to be absorbed, and the ships, with their biometal hulls and neural wiring, had soaked them up like dry soil in rain. Now those pulses were inside them, sleeping, waiting. All systems green, announced. Temporal anchors charged, neutron lances warmed up, swarm missiles loaded. Vance took a deep breath, then we're ready. She walked back to her command chair and sat down. Helm, prepare for microfold jump. Target, 200 meters starboard of the command core. The helmsman's hands trembled for just a second. Aye, Captain. Remember, Vance said, her voice steady as stone, we get one shot. One chance. After that, the whole fleet will know what we are. And what's that? Someone asked. She looked at them, her eyes calm but fierce. The thing that waits in the dark. Outside, the battle reached its peak. Admiral's flagship was listing badly, one engine gone, shields flickering. He barked orders, but his voice was weak. The alliance was losing. And still, no one looked toward the back. Still, no one saw the human ship. Still, no one understood. Deep in the Perseverance, the final systems came online. The ship didn't roar, it didn't flash. It just changed, like a sleeping wolf opening its eyes. Spoke one last time. Captain, we're not sluggish, we're coiled. Vance nodded. Then it's time to strike. She raised her hand. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member held their breath. But she didn't give the order yet. Because the perfect strike isn't fast. It's sudden. And the galaxy wasn't ready. Not yet. But soon. Very soon. The command dreadnought loomed like a black god in the heart of the battle. Its biohull throbbed with slow, steady pulses, the neural heartbeat that held their entire fleet together. Around it, alien ships burned and broke. Victory was seconds away. No one saw the UNS Perseverance move. One moment it floated quietly in the rear, ignored and forgotten. The next, it simply wasn't there. It didn't warp. It didn't streak across the void with a trail of fire. It folded space around itself like a blanket and reappeared 200 meters from the command core, so close its hull almost brushed the enemy's spines. Silence fell for half a second. Then all hell broke loose. The Perseverance didn't fire cannons. It didn't launch missiles the old way. Instead, from hidden ports along its belly, it released 3 dark spheres, no bigger than a human head. They floated for a heartbeat, then vanished. They were temporal anchors. Inside the dreadnought, time itself stuttered, not stopped, just looped. A single microsecond repeated over and over inside key neural junctions. The ship's central mind screamed, but no sound came out. Its thoughts tangled. Orders turned into noise. The steady heartbeat pulse skipped. Across the battlefield, every ship froze. Not dead, not broken, just confused. On the flagship, Admiral stared at his screen. What just happened? His sensors showed the fleet drifting, weapons silent, engines idle, like a swarm of insects that had suddenly forgotten why they were flying. Then from the human ship, streaks of blue-white light shot out, thin, sharp, and silent. Neutron lances. They didn't explode on impact. They pierced. They bored through armor like hot knives through butter, drilling straight into the ship's core systems, not to destroy, but to disable. One by one, vessels went dark, not in fire but in silence. But the real horror came next. From the Perseverance's forward bay, hundreds of tiny drones spilled into space. No bigger than a hand, they looked like black seeds. They didn't chase the ships. They waited. And when they tried to reboot their systems, the drones latched onto exposed neural ports and poured in a single command, repeated in machine code. Sleep. Not kill, not erase, just sleep. The crews didn't die. They collapsed at their stations, minds trapped in peaceful, endless dreams. Their ships floated like tombs, alive on the outside, empty within. In 90 seconds, the tide turned. The command dreadnought shuddered, its red core dimmed, its spines drooped, the neural pulse stopped. And the Alliance watched in stunned silence. What did they do? A speaker whispered over open comms. No one answered. On the bridge of the Perseverance, Captain Vance stood tall. Her face showed no joy, no pride, only focus. Open fleet-wide channel. "Aye, Captain." She took a breath. Then her voice, calm and clear, rolled across every ship in the Grand Convergence fleet. "Humanity doesn't start fights, but we finish them." The words hung in the silence like a bell. On the bridge, his jaw dropped. He looked at the human ship, still dull, still slow-looking, now floating calmly among the disabled dreadnoughts like a wolf among sleeping deer. "That's impossible," he muttered. But it was. It was human. Back on the Perseverance, checked his screen. All primary ships neutralized. No casualties on our side. "Good," Vance said. "Now let's make sure they stay down." Called from engineering. "Captain, the swarm drones are still active. If they try to wake up, they'll be put back to sleep. For years if needed." Vance nodded. "Then we've bought time." She walked to the viewport and looked out. The battlefield was eerily quiet now. No explosions, no screams, just drifting metal and the faint glow of dying stars. And then the comms lit up. "UNS Perseverance, this is High Speaker of the... Please explain what just happened." Vance turned. "Tell them we used non-lethal suppression. We didn't want to kill, we wanted to stop." Raised an eyebrow. "They won't believe it." "Let them see for themselves," Vance said. She ordered the drones to send a data packet to every Allied ship, full sensor logs, weapon schematics, heavily redacted, and mission logs. Proof that the humans hadn't fired a single explosive round. They hadn't shattered hulls. They hadn't spilled blood. They had simply switched off the enemy. On the support vessel, watched the data stream in shock. "They didn't win with power," he whispered. "They won with patience." His commander finally spoke, voice quiet, "And we called them slow." Now the laughter was gone. In its place was fear and respect. Opened a direct channel to Vance. "Captain, I owe you an apology." "You owe your fleet their lives," she replied. "Don't waste them." She closed the channel. Outside, the fleet hung motionless. No retreat, no surrender, just stillness. The Dominion would learn of this defeat. They would send more ships, more weapons, more nightmares. But now they would also send fear. Because they had met a species that didn't roar. A species that waited. And struck like lightning from a clear sky. The Perseverance powered down its weapons. The neutron lances cooled. The temporal anchors returned to sleep. The ship looked once again like a tired old cruiser, slow, harmless, and dull. But no one believed that anymore. As the Alliance began rescue operations, their ships gave the human vessel a wide, careful berth, not out of rudeness, out of awe. Captain Vance returned to her chair. She picked up her coffee, still warm, and took a slow sip. The crew worked quietly, resetting systems, running checks, cleaning up loose tools. No cheers, no celebration. They had done their job. And that was enough. Far away, deep in space, a high priest of the Dominion stared at a dead screen. His fleet gone, not destroyed, not even damaged, just silent. He did not understand, he could not understand. Because Earth had taught humanity a truth the galaxy had forgotten. Speed wins battles, but stillness wins wars. And the humans, they had been still for a very long time. Now the galaxy would remember. Not because they shouted, but because they struck. Suddenly, and without warning. The battlefield was quiet now, too quiet. The Grand Convergence fleet drifted among the wreckage like hunters standing over a fallen beast. The ships floated lifeless, their spines drooping, their cores dim, not destroyed, just stopped, like a storm that had run out of wind. And at the center of it all, the UNS Perseverance sat unmoving, still gray, still dull, still silent. But no one laughed anymore. Admiral stared at the human ship through his viewport. His own flagship was battered, its shields flickering, its crew exhausted. He'd spent hours shouting orders, trying to rally his fleet against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. And yet, here he was, alive, because of them. "Captain Vance," he said over the comms, his voice softer than before, "I owe you more than words can say." Vance's reply came calm and steady. "You don't owe us anything, Admiral. We're part of this alliance, or we were." Frowned, "What do you mean?" "I mean our job is done. They are neutralized for now. Your fleet needs time to recover. Use it wisely." Before could respond, the human ship powered down its comms. Its running lights dimmed further, until it almost blended into the void. To anyone watching, it looked like the Perseverance was preparing to leave. And maybe it was. On the bridge, Captain Vance stood by the viewport, sipping her coffee. The stars outside glowed faintly, cold and distant. Her crew worked around her, resetting systems, filing reports, cleaning up loose tools. No one spoke much. There was no need. They had done what they came to do. "They're still starring," Lieutenant said, nodding toward the sensor display. Dozens of alien ships had turned their scanners toward the Perseverance, as if expecting another miracle or another strike. "Let them stare," Vance replied. "They'll get used to it." Walked in from engineering, wiping grease from his hands. "Dampeners are stable. Temporal anchors are back in standby mode. Swarm drones report no activity from the fleet." "Good," Vance said. "Keep monitoring. If they wake up, we'll know." She turned back to the viewport. The nebula shimmered in the distance, its colors muted now. The battle had drained even the beauty from the sky. "What happens next?" asked quietly. Vance didn't answer right away. She thought about Earth, about the blue oceans, the green forests, the billions of people who would never see this battlefield. Humanity wasn't like the other species in the galaxy. It didn't build empires. It didn't crave conquest. It just wanted to survive. And sometimes survival meant doing things others couldn't understand. "We go home," she said finally, "or somewhere else, somewhere new." Nodded. "Think they'll ever figure us out?" Vance smiled faintly. "Maybe, but not today." Farther away, on the crystalline command spire of the vessel Luminous Resolve, High Speaker watched the human ship with growing unease. Her people thrived on harmony, on balance. They understood weapons, shields, and engines. But this was something else. "They let us think they were weak," she said to her advisors. "They let us mock them. Why?" Perhaps because they knew we wouldn't listen otherwise, one advisor suggested. Shook her head. No, it's deeper than that. They wanted us to underestimate them, to doubt them, until it was too late. She turned back to the screen. The Perseverance hadn't moved, not yet, but when it did, she knew the galaxy would remember. On the support vessel reviewed the data packets sent by the humans. Every detail was precise, deliberate. The temporal anchors, the neutron lances, the swarm drones. None of it was flashy. None of it screamed power. But together it formed a weapon unlike anything he'd ever seen. They didn't fight like warriors, he muttered to himself. They fought like predators. His commander, overhearing him, nodded slowly. Yes, predators that wait, that plan, that strike without warning. And then disappear, added. The commander sighed. We made a mistake. We judged them by their ship, by their silence, by their patience. And now, asked. Now, the commander said, we respect them. As the hours passed, the Alliance began to regroup. Rescue pods wounded crews to medical ships. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair damaged hulls. Commanders exchanged messages, planning their next move, but none of them approached the Perseverance, not directly. Instead, they sent gifts. Crates of lumberries from the, samples of crystalline alloys from the, even a rare biodisc, a living artifact said to hold centuries of knowledge. Vance accepted them all with polite thanks. Then she ordered her crew to pack them away. Gifts were nice, but they weren't why they were here. Finally, as the fleet prepared to withdraw, Admiral opened one last channel. Captain Vance, he said, his tone formal. The Alliance wishes to extend its deepest gratitude. Without your intervention, we would have been annihilated. You're welcome, Vance replied simply. There's talk of inviting Earth to join the Galactic Council, a permanent seat, full rights. Vance raised an eyebrow. That's generous. It's deserved, said firmly, but will you accept? Vance paused. She glanced at her crew, then back at the screen. Earth isn't ready for that kind of commitment, not yet, maybe someday. Hesitated, then nodded. Understood, but know this, you've earned our trust, all of us. Good, Vance said. Trust is important, so is remembering. She closed the channel. Later, as the alien ships began to disperse, Vance called her senior officers to the bridge. We've done what we came for, she told them. They are stopped. The Alliance knows we're not to be underestimated. What's next is up to Earth. Do you think they'll come after us again? Asked. Probably, Vance admitted. But they'll hesitate now, they'll wonder, and that hesitation gives us time. Snorted, time for what? More waiting. No, Vance said. Time for learning, for adapting, for becoming stronger. She walked to the helm, set course for uncharted space. Let's see what else is out there. Aye, Captain, the helmsman replied. The engines hummed softly. The dampeners engaged. Slowly, silently, the Perseverance turned away from the battlefield and began to drift. Behind it, the alien ships gave it a wide berth. Some hailed it one last time, offering thanks or questions. Vance answered briefly, politely. Then she closed the channels. The stars stretched ahead, endless and unknown. On the bridge, the crew worked quietly. Coffee brewed in the galley. Jazz music played softly in the background. Everything seemed normal, ordinary. But deep inside the ship, hidden systems pulsed faintly, ready, waiting. Because humanity had learned something long ago, in the darkest days of its history. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent. And sometimes, silence is the deadliest sound of all. The Perseverance disappeared into the void, leaving only whispers behind. Whispers of a sluggish ship. A perilous ship. A ship that waited. Until the strike hit suddenly. And changed everything.